Okay, I promised to do a walk around video, and when I did that, discussing what's good and bad about the car. Luckily, not much bad, but I'm going to start out with a short one just on the engine compartment itself. Then I'll come back a little later and do one for the remainder of the car. All right. The first thing I want to point out here is some things that I've fairly recently changed, and the first one is the brake cylinder itself. Replaced that recently, and also replaced the rubber hoses to each wheel, and at the same time flushed the brake system with new DOT4 fluid. The second thing I want to point out here, which is one of the unusual aspects of the car, is this little device right here. That is a fuel filter slash water separator. It's rather unusual to see these, especially today. This one was installed when the car was new back in 1979, and the car came out of Southern California. And back in the 70s and 80s, it was fairly common, as I understand it, to have a problem with water in your diesel fuel. I've heard it was because it was close to the ocean. I'm not sure exactly, but that was evidently important enough that this was oftentimes done, and that's what this is. It's it's installed between the fuel tank, and you can see the hose there goes up to this fuel filter water separator, and then from there it goes down to the pre-filter on the car, which these are normal. So it doesn't hurt a thing. It actually is an extra filter, and the pre-filter itself has never even been dirty, although I've changed it just recently. The filter in this larger one here pretty much keeps everything out at that point. So I want you to be aware of that and what that is. Well, let's see. I can see the top of the new shock absorbers I installed. It kept real quickly there. I did install new Bilstein shocks in all four wheels recently. The next thing is the glow plugs. I'm going to have another video just to discuss the glow plugs that I replaced. There's a few things here I want to make sure everybody's aware of that I don't think are real common knowledge about these glow plugs. So I'll move back to that later. Next thing is the fuel injectors. I recently, within the last few months, removed these fuel injectors, cleaned them, and installed new Monarch nozzles, not Bosch nozzles like you might be thinking, but Monarch. Monarch nozzles are the best you can get today. They're made in Germany. The Bosch nozzles are no longer made in Germany, and as I understand it, they're quite a bit lower quality than the Monarchs. They're the best you can get, and so that's what I've installed here. After I did that and put the injectors back together, I tested them for leaks and also the firing pressures to make sure they were all fairly close in the PSI pressure that causes these things to fire. Let's see. While I was replacing the glow plugs, I bumped into this vacuum line here that runs from the vacuum pump to the brake booster here, and broke it. Of course, it was 40 years old and they're plastic, so that was not unusual. I did have a hard time trying to find a replacement, and the actual replacement for this one was no longer available. And the only difference is these T-fittings here. This one has two T-fittings. The original one only had one T-fitting because it provides vacuum to the car itself for the door locks and so on. The other one, I believe, was for a cruise control, which this car does not have a cruise control, and so it didn't have another one there. So this one has a T-fitting I did not need. So what I did was I just went ahead and put a short hose on it and plugged it. So works fine, but so you're aware of that. Let's see. The valves were adjusted, and a new cover gasket installed. Let's see. Oh, the also when I was taking pictures, I took a picture of the hood pad, and the original hood pad that was 40 years old. It looked pretty shabby, so I went ahead and I just recently replaced that. And when I did, cosmetically, I think I helped the situation a bit. When it was put in at the factory, these things are glued in place, and there was a lot of excess glue around the, like around in here, and also up at the top, a lot of excess glue. I went ahead and cleaned all of that and tried to make it look like new. In this area up in here, when I got all done, I just, I had some of the original pastel blue paint, so I just spray painted some new paint on top of that, and that makes it look very good. All right, the next thing I want to point out here that I do mention in my service area, that is the radiator plastic neck reinforcement here. I purchased this reinforcement kit from Mercedes Source in Bellingham, Washington. That, by the way, they've been my main source of parts and also information about how to perform repairs since I bought these old cars. Mercedes Source, highly recommend you get in contact with their website, and they've got a lot of good information to help you with this. In this case, what I found out was these radiators are plastic, and this neck right here that you're seeing is a potential problem. It can be a major problem. If that neck breaks, and evidently that can happen, and you're driving, you're going to lose all your water out of your radiator very, very quickly. And if you're not watching your temperature gauge, next thing you know, you're going to have a major problem with your engine. So what this kit is that I bought, there's actually a copper tubing here that fit inside the plastic, and it's easy to put it in there to keep it in place, and then put it back together with a new radiator hose and new clamps. So this should never be a problem, but it was another bit of PM I did that I am fond of doing preventive maintenance. Also, at the same time, I replaced that radiator hose and also the other radiator hose with all new clamps and so on. The idler pulley here, I want to make a comment about that. Shortly after I got the car back from the car collector in Tennessee, I started hearing an odd noise from the air conditioning compressor, thinking I had a major problem, and I finally narrowed it down to this idler pulley here. It was actually replaced when it was in Tennessee, but they did not use that. They used a off-market idler pulley, and it had already disintegrated inside, and it was bad in here, and it was wobbling around. So once I figured that out, I put a new idler pulley in, and this is an original OEM Mercedes-Benz idler pulley, so it should be good for a long time. Let's see, replaced all the new belts at that same time, and next thing was the York AC compressor. I want to talk a little bit about that. This is the original compressor, dates back to when the car was made in 1978. I had that serviced just early this year, and the service shop when they took it, tore it down, and serviced it, and I told them that I didn't want to change the refrigerant. It is the original R12 refrigerant. This compressor has been around for 40 years and it's still running good. So I made the decision I wanted to keep this car original. Now I do want to say that if somebody who buys this car is planning on using it as a daily driver, they might want to consider replacing this compressor and upgrading the refrigerant system to something else. I think if I was going to use it as a daily driver, I would probably do that. However, I never used it that way, nor do I think most buyers of this car would use it that way, and so I've decided to keep it original. If the buyer wants to change it, that's up to them, or up to you. The next thing, let's see. I did put a new air filter in this year. The battery itself, that was replaced when the car was in Tennessee, and it's a very good battery. It's an AGM, and I did notice it was made in Germany. The date on the battery is March 17, 2017. These batteries do last much longer than the normal 12-volt batteries. This one obviously doesn't have many miles on it, so I think it's in good shape, but just to make you aware, the battery is over 5 years old. Let's see, the next thing that I'm sure somebody's going to ask me is what about the battery tray? Can you take a picture of it so we know it's not rusted out? Well, I tried very hard to do that. This thing fits in here very tight, and it's a very heavy battery, and I'm 79 years old. I could not get it out. As you can see, there's any rust on that tray. It certainly is not visible with that battery in place. And I really don't think there is any, but I can't guarantee that. The next thing you might notice here is some wiring right here where you can see I've done a little work on that. What those wires are, there's two on each side of the car. They go down to the brake sensors on each front wheel. When I replaced the rubber hoses earlier on to the brake pads, the brake system calipers, I noticed the rubber hoses. There's a rubber hose that protects these wires when they get outside of the engine compartment and they're down by the wheel. In order to protect those wires, there was a rubber or a vinyl hose that had completely disintegrated over the years. So I didn't want to leave it that way, so I put new rubber hoses on each one of these sensors to protect it. Of course, to do that, I had to cut the wiring, which I did up in the engine compartment like that. That way I was able to slide the new hose on and down into the caliper. And so that's what you're seeing right here. And I've done the same thing on the other side. Let's see. That's it for right now. So I'm going to end this video, and I'm going to do another one now on just talk about the what? Forgot. That's what happens when you get to be 79. Oh, the glow plugs. I'm going to talk about the glow plugs here in a second. All right. Thank you very much.